Hello and welcome to Game Raven Review's first panel of the weekend. Today we are talking about something that we've thought a lot about at Game Raven. What does indie mean anyway? And you would think that this would be a simple question, but you're going to find out it's not a simple answer by any means. But before we jump into any of that, I want to tell you a little bit about us. Like, why are we up here talking about this? And why should you listen to us? We are Game Raven Review, and we are your go-to media source for overlooked and underrepresented indie games. And our mission is to introduce gamers like you to the hidden gems that are in the indie world. If you haven't noticed, there's a lot of indie games out there, and it can be really hard to sift through. So for gamers, it's kind of a nice place to go when you're looking for really small indie games. And we also support small creators. We're really passionate about supporting small indie games and teams. So we have all kinds of ways we do this. We have written formal reviews. We do play testing for devs, and we create reels for them. We have a podcast. We also have live streams on Twitch pretty much every day of the week, and so much more. So to make it easier for you, if you're sitting through this panel and you're like, wait, who is Game Raven? Why are they talking to us? We have a beautiful QR code at the bottom of the screen that you can scan at any time. It will take you to our beacons, and it has all kinds of different links for you. I will also mention that our wonderful Sarah over here is going to be running a poll. So if you want to access that poll, you're going to find it on that QR code. So that said, who do I have with me? You know who we are, but who are we, right? First, we have Lil Force Faye.
Hello.
And she is a writer and streamer for us. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little tired because we flew in today, but
Yeah.
good. Vibing. This is my second panel now, so going strong.
Yeah, it's been a long day. And next we have, kind of out of order, but that's okay, Taz, who is our Twitch stream lead and our podcast editor. Very important person. Taz, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. I just realized we need to show your faces. These are all of our tags. If you want to follow us individually, that's great. You don't have to. Please follow Game Raven. That's awesome. Somebody who hasn't really shown up a lot on our podcasts or anything yet, but I'm super excited is here, Sam, Hip Official, who, if you heard the music playing before, that's all of his stuff. He does really cool DJ work live and all that stuff. Anyway, that's Sam. Hi, how are you?
I'm also tired, but pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really happy to be here. This is my first time at any kind of MAG event or any kind of game music conference, and this is lit. I like it so far.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
good
it's
to be
pretty.
here.
I don't know. We think it's kind of cool, you know. And I'm Puppet Master N. I'm also known as Emily or Puppet or whatever you want to call me. And I guess I'm the founder. What do I have up there? Creator and editor in chief. That's
You're the boss.
that's yes.
Yeah.
Big Kahuna, I guess. That's me. So now you know our team. So thank you all for being here to discuss indie games.
Oh, yeah.
Once again.
Oh, yeah.
So here comes the fun part for you guys. So we like to start our panels off with a little fun question for you, the audience, to answer. And this comes from every day in our Discord, we ask a question. It's like the question of the day. I'm sure a lot of Discords do that. And we just pulled one of those questions for this panel, and we thought it was very fitting. And our question today is, which of these games would you consider as indie? So, yes, we do.
If you would like to join the live poll, scan the QR code, and the first link that you see on that should be a little gift that says click here if you would like to.
Yes. All right, first, Stardew Valley. Indie or not? Yes, you can totally answer out loud too. Yes. So go ahead and vote on those polls. We are not going to answer these because, we're about to talk about our thoughts, so we'll let you guys. All right, so do we get to see the polls as they come in? Ooh. Should I do them one at a time, or?
I think it shows you them at the end if you want to do them at the end.
Cool.
If you want to do them one at a time.
We'll do it at the end. Yeah, okay. Next one. Are we ready? Minecraft. Indie game? Not an indie game? I hear a lot of
Hubbub.
hubbub. There was a lot of.
That started a discussion.
I guess that's the question then.
Oh, do we have a question?
Oh,
I was just gonna say, if I'm correct, did it start as one, and then when it was sold to Microsoft, it technically is no longer one?
so we are going to talk about that.
Okay.
That's why we're not answering these questions because we'll totally dive into it. I love that you know that and you're aware of that.
Black and white.
Yep. Yes or no. That's it. Yeah.
Can you go back to the QR code one more time, please?
Yes. Oh, I realized it's not on the other slides. I apologize. There you go. QR code for anybody who needs it. Sorry about that. Oversight. We have to remember to add it to our other panels. Yeah. All righty. Cool. So the first one was, if you're just now coming into the poll, is it going to show? Nope. Okay. So we're on Minecraft. Yes or no? Indie game? I will give you guys a moment to vote on that. Yes or no?
You guys see the?
This might be our first time ever using this. It might.
Brand new technology.
Yeah. Yes. Uncharted. Cool.
Like on a Zoom call, like online teaching, so this is a little bit.
Yep. By the way, this is Sarah, our executive director. She's not just somebody in the corner that runs things for us. Yep.
Sometimes I have the stuff work.
That's true, but very essential to our
An important
organization. She's yes.
Yes.
She's also a school teacher, so we love all the organization, everything she does for us, and fun things like polls. All right, next one. Among Us. Indie or not? Yes or no? Among Us. All right. We're going to move on to the next one, so get those votes in. Among Us. Is it an indie game? Oh, it's a landslide. Cool. Fall Guys. Fall Guys. Yes or no? If you don't know the game, any of these games, for any reason at all, that's fine. Just guess.
Does the art look indie?
Does the... Shh, don't give things away.
Spoilers.
All right, we're going to move on to the next one. Get those votes in. Homebody. This one's a lesser known one. But, oh, true, sorry. I'm so sorry. Just Homebody.
It's just Homebody.
And it might be by somebody mentioned on the screen. Maybe. It's a mystery. Yes or no? Indie game or not? Homebody.
The game is technically a mystery game.
That's right. All right, ready for the next? Rocket League. Indie or not? Is Rocket League indie? Yes or no? That's it. No, maybe. Sorry. We only have yes or no.
Again,
Alrighty.
there's no gray here.
No, yeah. Not at all in this whole discussion. No gray. All right, next. Last. Pokemon. specifically red, blue, and yellow. Indie game or not? I know. All right. I'll give you guys a little bit longer on this. I know this one's hard.
Yeah, I heard a big no.
Yeah, I heard it.
Yeah.
We'll see what the polls say. All right. So, okay, spoilers, everyone. Nobody actually knows the answer to this question. So, we're not up here to tell you one way or another. And as you have just, I know, I'm so sorry. He's like, I'm out. I'm not doing it.
We clickbaited you. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
We can't give you all the answers. Yes. So as you can tell, sometimes it's really hard to decide if something is indie or not. And so we're going to talk about that. But what I wanted this little experiment to show is that you guys are the consumers. So you kind of set the pace. And so if we say something up here and you're like, I don't really think that, that's okay, because you're the consumer. You can decide that. I'm just happy you guys are here to listen to our conversation and be involved in it. So with that said, are you ready to reveal? Do you want me to go back to the first slide? All right, so our first question was, Stardew Valley, is that indie or not?
Stardew Valley, we have 100% yes.
100% yes! Woo!
Which is funny, because last time we were at MAGWest, do you remember this?
No.
And I wrote that my favorite
Indie.
Stardew Valley. is
Yes. Right. Yeah, okay, now that you're saying it, yeah, I remember. Yes. Oh my gosh. All right, well, 100% yes from you guys. Minecraft.
47% yes, 53% no.
47-53.
Wow,
We
that's
split the room,
That's a good
everyone.
split. Yeah.
Wow. Cool. I like that. Among Us.
100% yes.
100% yes.
I did not expect that.
I didn't expect that either, actually. Yeah. Wow. Fall Guys.
53 yes, 47 no.
53-47. Wow. You guys, we're not on the same page here. Homebody.
76 yes, 24 no.
Oh, okay. Not completely one way or the other, but all right. It was more so
More yes.
yes than no.
3 quarters.
Cool. And Rocket League.
24% yes, 76% no.
Ooh, another interesting split. Cool. Wow. Pokemon.
29% yes, 71% no.
You 29%. I love you so much, and you're going to find out why later on in this panel. That makes my heart so happy. All right. So, okay, we're asking the question, what does indie mean? Why does it matter that we answer this question? I think that's a really good, it's a good thing to know when you're starting a conversation. It's like, why does this matter anyway? So, we have a lot of interesting thoughts about that. So I think I'm just going to start. And why do you think it matters, Faye?
There are people that do care about smaller creators getting the recognition they deserve. When a AAA game comes out and there's 500 people that worked on a game, it's hard to pinpoint of like whose baby is this kind of thing, and for some people it means a lot to support people who have a game baby that they love and cherish and work really, really hard on all by themselves, and release it, and it might not get the recognition that these AAA games have, but this is their baby as well, and there's a lot of people who care a lot about that.
That distinction,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Sam, what about you?
Yeah, so coming from the music world, I'm more familiar with the indie music scene, but I see a lot of parallels, especially when you get into like are games art kind of thing. There's a lot of parallels there. But yeah, I focus on the community aspect. I focus on, like, with indie music, there's a whole underground scene with certain genres and certain like indie record labels and that kind of thing. And with indie game publishers, I see a lot of the same kind of thing. So if a publisher or like a game studio is truly independent, they have their own kind of base and following and like kind of culture, sometimes even cults associated with them. And to me, that is an important aspect of this, that as a consumer, then not only are you buying the game, you're kind of buying into a piece of that culture and of that community. And so, like with bigger publishers and like AAA studios and all that, they might also have a following, and some of them have really, Call of Duty and all that have really big followings, but it's not quite the same in my opinion. So
Yeah. Taz, why does it matter? Why do you care?
I'm kind of on the same boat. It's crazy to think how, like, maybe a couple, decades ago, like, you heard somebody say, "Oh, I've made my own game." And you're like, "What are you talking about? That's impossible. Only, like, big companies can do that, right?" But now it's become literally its own genre of gaming, to where it has its own communities and people prefer it over AAA studios. And there's a lot more passion involved. There's a lot more like personal connections involved. Like, I don't know anybody, that I've never met anybody who was like part of the Kingdom Hearts team, but like I've met plenty of indie developers and people that have helped make indie games throughout all my convention years and just like being on Twitter and things like that. So there's a lot more of a personal connection. And like, I don't know, like you have your favorite game, it happens to be indie, and you have conversations with that developer. Like, that is a dream to a lot of people. So I think that's kind of what matters. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mentioned customer expectation. I'm kind of more business-minded, so that's what I think of. And then also, Faye, you mentioned like creating space for small creators. Like that's really important, because us as gamers, we do care what we're playing, and we care how we find those things and how they're labeled. So, by the way, if you have an answer to any of these questions, we do have a Discord. You are welcome to go to it and, tell us that we're wrong or right or whatever.
Just be kind of nice, at least.
Make it spicy sometimes. No, I'm just
All
kidding.
right,
I'm
all
just
right.
kidding. Oh.
That's also on the QR code.
Yes, it's also on the QR code. Okay, I know earlier I said that we weren't going to answer this question, but we actually are. Like, this is a definition of an indie game. So if you want to look at just the definition, we are going to give that to you. That's what we can give you. So according to this website called Wikipedia, an indie game is short for independent video game, is a video game typically created by individuals or smaller development teams without the financial and technical support of a large game publisher, in contrast to most AAA games. Bone dry answer for everybody. This is what indie game is. If you haven't noticed, not everybody shares this opinion with Wikipedia. We just saw a bunch of games that maybe land one way or another, but we can't agree on whether or not they're indie. So we all kind of have our own definition of what indie means when it comes down to it. And I wanted to ask you guys, I know you answered that a little bit, but if you could kind of hone it in, what would be your definition of an indie game? Faye, you're up.
My definition of an indie game is someone who, again, has that passion, develops that, I keep saying that baby, but like that's the best metaphor I can think of for it. And especially those who don't really get the marketing that a lot of others have, because marketing's expensive, and a lot of these people don't have extra money. They've poured all their money into making the game. So that's part of why we're here, because we want them to pour their money into making the game and not into marketing that that is expensive. So to me, it means a lot when there's a game that maybe has little to no marketing.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And I should mention on that, as Game Raven, we do not charge devs for our coverage ever. That is something that is really important to us. So just to be clear, we are not a marketing company in that sense. We're here to support small creators. That's why we're here. Sam.
Yeah, so, I think for me, there's kind of two ways that I want to look at it. One is kind of a nominal, like, budget, like, sales, like, in terms, again, thinking in the music sense, like, if a smaller record label is bought out, for example, does anybody here know Dirty Bird? Has anybody heard? Okay. They're a house music record label based in California here, but they were bought out by Empire Records just earlier this year. And to me, that takes them out of the indie conversation because they have, I can't remember how big Empire is, but it's in the like tens of millions of dollars now.
Yeah.
Like, so to me, there is like kind of a cutoff financially to where a team gets big enough to where they can't be indie anymore. But then the other side of it would be the word independent means you're not really influenced by outside factors, and you have the ability to kind of assert your creative vision in an independent way. And so if a studio has a vision for a game and they're not depending on a financial backer to give them the okay if something is good to go or not, then to me that's independent also. And so, yeah, that's kind of my two
Nice. Yeah.
ways of looking at it.
Taz, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with Sam there and like what the wiki said about financial backing. Like, if the only money a developer gets is when they finally complete their game and sell their game, and then that's their revenue, that's definitely independent. Like you made something and now you're getting the money. You weren't getting paid to make the game. You were getting paid after the fact. So yeah, financial backing, and that's why we're like, soon we'll like kind of have a conversation about like who's still in the indie game and who's now out of the indie game. You know what I mean? So like, it's definitely it's not a yes or no. It's like, are you gonna sell out or not kind of deal. Which is just fine. People make their money. That's totally okay. But in the conversation of indie, that is definitely stripped away from you once you receive money from an outside factor, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. That reminds me too of we'll do Q&A at the end. So put a pin in it. Hold on to it. So that reminds me of we had a streamer called Hour a Day Gamer. If you haven't heard of him before, please go look him up. Hour a Day Gamer. He is part of what's called the Indie World Order, if you've heard of it before. They run iWoCon, which is a virtual conference for small indies. So please go check out iWoCon and Our Day. He was with us on a podcast of ours about a year ago, I think. And I felt like, and we talked about this in particular with him, and he said something that really stuck with me, and he said, it's kind of like the garage shop. Like, was this game made in a garage? And was the developer being paid to make the game or not? Because a lot of times they have day jobs, right? And they do this on the side. It's their passion project. They're not getting paid for it, and they make the whole game that way. For me personally, I love that definition. But I also find it to be a little unreasonable sometimes, because there are some games that I think I would still consider indie that didn't necessarily start in a garage, right? So again, it goes back to, we all have our own definition of indie. Some of us, look at, I have up here, number of sales or the budget or the publisher, whether they have one or not, its revenue, its visibility, its creative process, or the number of people involved in the making. It's all important, and it just matters for you what is more important than not. And for me in particular, and I think I've heard from all of us, is like, what is that heart that originally started that game, and did they stay true to that? Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, let's talk about this. Can a game no longer be considered indie? There are a lot of games that we just saw, right, that kind of land in this category. They were indie, and now they're pretty big. Are they still indie? Faye, what do you think?
Sam kind of touched on it. I kind of hate the word sellout, but sometimes that is kind of the best way to put it. That some games start out as one person, one small team, and Nintendo, maybe Microsoft, comes in and gives them millions of dollars, and now it's a Microsoft game, or Nintendo, or Sony, or something else, because I'm not talking about one in particular. And to me, that is no longer an indie game, because it's kind of like when companies buy each other out, it's not really that company anymore, it's that bigger company now. And that bigger company surely isn't an indie company, and they have a lot more resources than that original smaller creator. So to me, that does take them out of the indie game. Does it make it a bad game? Definitely not at all. But to me, that kind of takes it out of the indie genre.
Indie genre, yeah.
Yeah.
Sam, what do you think? And you can talk about music too, like.
Oh, well, thank you.
I mean, yes, you're allowed to.
Yeah, so, I think, like I mentioned before, kind of having that creative vision and not letting it get affected, maybe not necessarily by a backer, but by the money factor at all. So some of these games got big on their own merit. They didn't need to be bought out to be in the millions of dollars or even billions in revenue. But when you get to that point where suddenly, like, this will hurt merch sales, or this will hurt, our next quarter's earnings or something like that, and that is what's steering your creative process, I think that is the point where you lose the indie status, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally. And again, we'll talk about some of the games and bring that up. And I have on here, well, okay, before I jump into that, Taz, tell us, can a game be considered no longer an indie?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And I make it sound so negative. Absolutely not. If I were to make a game and then, like, I mean, we've seen it from as early as, like, Angry Birds, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, cute little mobile game. All of a sudden, boom, $1 million. I would sell that game in a heartbeat if I had that opportunity. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's not a bad thing. It's just at that point, it just no longer becomes an indie game, because at that point there's outside finances and there's outside. I think one of you mentioned there's outside input in the game at that point, other than yourself or your studio or what have you. So, yeah, again, not a bad thing, but you can no longer have the tag of indie under your game.
Yeah, and I think what I hope you guys understand is that, like, we're not gatekeeping here, right? I think I've been pretty clear that we're not gatekeeping, but and it really does matter if something's tagged indie or not. Again, because that's how we find games and that's how we support games. But this is like selling out, honestly, is what we hope for every indie dev. Like, we want them to be successful. We want them to be able to retire and say, I did a good job. Like, we want that. So it's not bad. I just don't think it's bad if something sells out.
It's not a moral judgment.
It's not a moral judgment by any means, no. Is it sad to see a game that kind of loses its heart and its spirit through time because it's sold out? Yeah, it's really sad. It sucks. But overall, there are indie games that started out indie, that got bought out, that are still great, wonderful games and have those great roots. And again, we'll talk about that. So here's kind of a fun question. That I love talking about. What sets indies apart from AAA games, or why do we love indies? Faye?
Kind of how I said earlier, the heart and soul is in it, and sometimes you really can't replicate that when there are 100, 500 people working on it. It's not the same as that one person who for 5 years has been thinking about this game and pouring their blood, sweat, and tears into it. There is a little something different. And one thing that I really like also is that a lot of those times, the developers that do put their blood, sweat, and tears into this game, they're much more receptive to feedback from the players, the audience, because they are just one person, and when they hear, oh, there's a bug in this thing, they're like, oh, shoot, let me go fix it right away. Whereas in Call of Duty, if you find a bug, a lot of they don't really care. They know they're gonna sell 1 billion copies anyways. Like Fallout 4 is a great example. I love that game. I've been playing it recently. Again, holy smokes, the graphics in that game can be atrocious. And it's been out for a long, long time. And I firmly believe a lot of people have brought up a lot of the issues with that game. Bethesda doesn't care, because they're gonna sell millions and millions and millions of copies whether or not they have some bugs. A game that I also like called House Flipper, which is a much more indie game, are constantly updating their game and constantly fixing bugs dependent on how people are responding to it, because it is a smaller base, and they do care if you actually like their game as opposed to just buying it. So to me, that's a big thing that I've noticed sets apart indies and AAA, is sometimes it feels like you as the audience kind of have more of a voice of how the game is and what changes happen.
Yeah, totally. Sam?
Yeah, so to go back to a music perspective here, I, as someone who performs as a DJ, I love crate digging. Crate digging is where you look for like kind of the undiscovered, the new, like the quality kind of music that hasn't made it to the masses yet. And I see a lot, I feel the same way when I'm looking for new indie games. And to me, that kind of, I don't know, like psychological space is important for creating an indie community. When I find a cool game, when I'm able to crate dig a new game, I can share it with my friends and create a cool social experience that you can't do that with a AAA game. It's like, I mean, I love Zelda and I love the new Tears of the Kingdom game, but like everybody's heard of it at this point, and it's only been out for like less than like a month now. Like, so you don't have that same experience. So for me, like that is part of what sets indies apart. And then kind of touching on what Faye just mentioned with the impact you have on the creators, you also have an impact on the community. So a game, especially a new kind of undiscovered, small indie game, will have a small community with it. And by joining that community's, like say Discord or something, you make a huge impact on that. If you were to join, say like a Call of Duty Discord with thousands of members, like your comment's gonna get lost in the stream. So to me, there's a big social aspect that sets indies apart from AAA games.
Absolutely. Taz?
From my point of view, there's definitely a quality to cost ratio difference when it comes to indies to AAAs. I'll buy a $70 AAA game and it sucks. Or it's just like poorly made, poor launch. We've seen that a lot this particular year. But you can get a phenomenal indie game for like $10, and you'll play that sucker start to finish and maybe start again, and then tell your friends about it, and then tweet about it, adding the developer, blah, blah, blah. You'll have a whole experience with it for definitely less money. and I don't know, you'll just be happier, happier in the long run. You know, there's a lot of great games out there, just like, oh, just, you know, a little farming simulator, $10, you know, it's whatever. I don't want to fight a whole army of people anymore right now for $70. I just want to farm for $10.
Yeah.
Which is totally fine. It's totally okay. But definitely the quality to cost ratio is a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure. I remember I went a long time without buying a AAA game, and when I went back, it was a Pokemon game, and it was like $70, and I'm like, what? I could get like so many games for that. Is this gonna? I did buy it because I love Pokemon, and they know I'm going to buy it, so they're one of the examples of.
And how good was that Pokemon game?
Oh, it was impeccable, perfect, no bugs at all, and it's
Point
still
proven.
perfect to this day. You know. Oh, Pokemon. Well, thank you guys. I definitely agree with all of that. I don't think I have much more to add. I love indies for all of those reasons, for the social aspect, for the connection you have with the devs, for the feedback that they receive. Yeah, definitely. I think also the creativity that comes from indie games. We have a couple more panels, not to like, you know, come to all of our panels, but do come to all of our panels. We have 2 other panels tomorrow that where we talk about the most ridiculous indies we could find. And you will see in that panel, there is so much creativity when it comes to indie games. And there's something about being free from the rat race, I guess, that allows for so much creativity. And I think that's what I love, too, about indie games, I have seen so many games that I'm like, I would have never thought of this in my life, but I love it. I'm here for it. And yes, so come to our panel. We're going to talk a lot about those games. Here is the biggest question for me, and I'm actually going to start by answering this because I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah.
So do you think it helps or hurts smaller indies when larger games are categorized as indies? Honestly, this is something that Game Raven Review has been really passionate about, because we are all about supporting small creators, and that means creating space for small creators. And sometimes when bigger games are still considered indie or labeled as indie, it takes that space away from those small creators. And all of the things we just talked about, all of the wonderful things about indie games, gamers miss out on that because there's just not enough bandwidth for them anymore, you know, because those bigger games are considered indie. And so when you're a gamer and you consider yourself somebody who likes indie games and you're looking for really indie games, it can also feel really deceptive when you play a game and you're like, this is wonderful, like I'm so happy I can support small creators and all this stuff, and then later on you find, oh, they don't have the same connection, or, you know, for whatever reason. I've been disappointed multiple times. I think one of the games that I have been most disappointed about, this is a hot take, and we did talk about this on our podcast too. How many of you played It Takes Two? Okay, cool. It won Indie Game of the Year a couple years back. How many of you knew that it was backed by EA? Okay, so you guys knew. How many of you would consider that game an indie game? No hands. And yet, it won Indie Game of the Year. And for me, that makes me very angry because there are so many great games that came out that year that didn't even get the time of day because It Takes Two had that tag of an indie game. That's one of the biggest reasons why this conversation is so important and why we're so passionate about it. Even though we can't necessarily answer it, there are times when we can answer it, right? And it doesn't align with what is actually happening in our world. So that's why we talk. We have conversations, right? To hope for change. So that is my answer to this. Faye, what do you think?
First of all, It Takes Two is a great game.
It is
though.
a great game.
Yeah,
It is a great game.
You know, want to make
Yes.
sure that's clear. But I agree of that. It is sad that it did kind of take that that space. And yeah, I mean, that is a perfect example of why that is. Because again, there are lots of great games that do deserve that title. And I don't know if any of you have searched indie games on Steam, but there's a lot of indie games that then you look and they're published / developed by AAA studios. So it's a little strange of why they're populating that indie tag. And one thing we know firsthand, because when we're streaming and stuff, we're looking for indie games to play and to discover. So I myself will go into that indie tag, and it's a little convoluted with games that I personally would not consider an indie game. And then all the way at the bottom, after I've searched for 3 hours, I find a gem that I wish had been way farther at the top, because the developer and publisher is this small little studio, and you find out this is the one game they've ever made. And it's like, oh, that's the one that I'm looking for. But I had to cycle through all of these other ones that weren't quite. So yeah, that can be frustrating for the consumer themselves, because again, a lot of us are passionate about what we're consuming and why. And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Sam?
It depends. So, I think it depends on well, there's a lot of factors, but I feel like it depends a lot on how the bigger game, so when, say, the bigger game receives an award, the spotlight's on them, and they have an opportunity to either take the glory for themselves and say, yeah, we're the best indie game, or to say, yeah, we're a great indie game, but this is our community. These are other great indie games you should check out. Like, bring the whole indie community into the conversation. And again, to bring in music, I see parallels with when more kind of niche genres are brought into the spotlight. Like, art is cyclical, and this last year it seems like house music in the mainstream with Beyonce's album that dropped last year, and a few other big pop artists came out with house music. And as a house music artist myself, I kind of took note that, like, Beyonce was claiming she invented house music, and there was some interesting things said by some of the bigger artists that obviously were taking influence from a smaller community. And I saw it as an example of, this is not what you should do to lift up, the community. So in that case, it would hurt indie developers. But I see it as an opportunity to actually really help the indie community. And unfortunately, I don't see it done as much as I would like.
Yeah.
So.
Looks good on paper, maybe not as reasonable in person.
Yeah, people suck.
You can say it. Taz.
Yeah, I'm kind of vibing with what Sam is saying, and also Faye, because I think Steam is too publicly moderated with its tags to really find those actual indie games. So you definitely want to find other resources like itch.io, maybe even Twitter. Even Xbox Game Pass has an actual indie section category, and it's great. I think Epic also does. But when it comes to an actual bigger indie game, definitely spread the love. And I don't know what kind of part of that previous conversation of of selling out, but there was that big Ooblets situation a couple of years ago.
Yes,
and that kind of had a lot of negative impact on from the indie community. And it was just kind of felt like a betrayal and stuff. They could have shared the love and done some stuff. I'm not throwing shade at anybody. They got their money, great. I haven't played the game myself, but I've heard it's fun. But there's definitely a sense of self-awareness, who helped get you here? Oh, these people, these devs, because I'm not a game developer, but I've talked to a lot of game devs who they communicate with each other. They're making different games. They're from different studios, but they're all in their circles. They're friends. They're companions, there are, all those kinds of things. So at that point, when you blow up, but then you're like, no, I'm not, who are you? You know what I mean? So like, it can have negative impact, but if you do it right, it can have positive impact.
Yeah, for sure. And I did want to mention, Taz, I'm remembering a comment you made earlier, how for us as Game Raven, sometimes we do cover bigger indie games and smaller indie games. We try to focus on the small teams, but once in a while we do cover the bigger indie games. And we do that because those bigger indie games have a following, and they come to that game, and what we hope for is that they look at other games that are similar to it and find their way to the smaller creators. It's like once one of us is lifted up, it's a tide that lifts all of them up. And hopefully as good gamers, we are constantly looking for games that are like the games we like, right? And so in that case, having bigger games labeled as indie, may actually help small indies. I personally, and we'll talk about Stardew Valley, I would have never gotten into indie games at all had I not played Stardew Valley. That was my first indie game. It was like the gateway indie for a lot of people. And now the genre is so much more popular than it was before Stardew Valley came out. And in that case, personally, I think that was a great example of a larger indie helping the community, at least in my case. So yeah, with that said, we're going to transition. We're going to, we have some time left. I want to keep some time for some Q&A. So we're going to kind of do a lightning round of this. We're going to go back through our examples that we asked about before that we had you guys vote on. And we're going to go and tell you what our opinions are. Again, we are not right and you are not wrong. Like, you have your own definition of indie. That's beautiful. The word indie is like individual. So if I were to say what we're saying is the only way, that would be counter to the whole conversation. So again, you do you, and this is just our thoughts. So we're going to share them because we're ravens and we like to have our voice heard.
Yeah.
Caw-caw. Okay. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Anyway, Stardew Valley. I'll give a couple quick points on its if it has a publisher or not, its development budget, and its net sales, just so we have some kind of basis to start with. So Stardew Valley, at time of development, and I believe still now, 1 employee, Eric Barone. By the way, he also did all the music, which is kind of amazing. Publisher is Chucklefish, so he did have a publisher. The development budget, he worked at a local theater during the day and had no budget for making Stardew Valley. So it was just him. So basically no budget, aside from what he made at the theater, to cover his own bills. Net sales, as of 2020, no, I'm sorry, 2022, what was last year? Was it like 2018? 20 million copies sold. 20 million copies. So, Faye, really quick, yes or no, Stardew Valley, is it an indie game?
Yes. Personally, because I believe he sold 20 million copies because the game was good and word of mouth spread, and not because a big studio came in and bought him a bunch of marketing. So I would consider that still an indie game.
Okay. Sam?
Yeah, in the same vein, and also because it's had the same creative vision the whole time, and it hasn't been really, we haven't seen it really change course because of a certain financial incentive.
Yeah. He's working on another game, by the way, about a vampire chocolatier. It's in the makes, so check it out. I don't even know if it's on Steam or anything yet. He's just talked about it, but I'm excited. Oh, it's on his Twitter. Oh, yeah. That's where I saw that. Okay, yes. Taz, yes or no?
Yes.
Just yes.
All
You
right.
said quick. You said lightning
Oh, yeah,
round.
that's true.
Yeah.
Lightning, okay.
I'm so sorry.
So yes, obviously, I think it's still an indie. One of the great success stories that we hope for all indie games, retaining its heart and making lots of money for all that hard work he put in. Minecraft. So the developer was Marcus Person, and am I saying that right? Person? It was one employee at the time of development. So when this game first started, it was only one person. It now has about 600 employees, and it's owned by Microsoft. It did not have a publisher at the time of release. Its development budget was none. He worked a day job as well. Its net sales, 200 million across all platforms. So we see some similarities to Stardew, but some not. Faye, what do you think? Yes or no?
No. No. Again, I hate this word, but they sold out. And, I mean, there were some people also in the development that are not part of the development anymore, and I don't even want to talk about them. But they have gone, they're living their life, they have nothing to do with the game anymore, and it's Microsoft's game now. Which, again, not a bad thing. I like Minecraft, but it's Microsoft's game, so yeah.
This is an example of used to be.
Yeah, great example, yep. Sam, what do you think?
So if I remember correctly, it was $2.5 billion that Microsoft
yes, I
spent
forgot to mention
on
that.
buying this out. So that's the exact amount of reasons why I think no.
Good for them,
The
though.
reason why I would put this in the used to be category is not just because it's sold out, but because the game has changed a lot over time with updates, where the vision and everything has changed as well, different platforms, different versions.
Yep, that
I think
heart.
It's different actually from if a company buys it later, but the game is just the exact same, it's just the IP transfer to somebody else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Taz, what do you think?
No longer.
No longer. I always expect you to say something like yes or something. I don't know. I always get excited to ask because I'm expecting something. I don't know. Okay, lightning round, right. Among Us. Really. Oh, Minecraft? No way. Not an indie game. Nope. I'm going to say no.
No way, no how.
Among Us, so the developer was Innersloth, and it was 7 employees at the time of development. Now there's around 20. Oh, spoilers. Now there's around 20. Did not have a publisher. Its budget unknown. I did a lot of research, could not find their original budget, which means that they were a small team and probably couldn't really track it because of how many hours they put in, not paid or whatever. You know, there's a lot of reasons why. Net sales, 500 million downloads. Wow. That's more than Minecraft, which is kind of surprising to me.
It's cheaper.
It is cheaper, yes. A majority of that is free.
It's
so-
free, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you. I was like, am I in the Twilight Zone? Faye, really quick, Among Us.
Yes, mostly because I saw when they won the Indie Game of the Year, and there was exactly 5 of them that were sitting and celebrating and talking about how this was their baby, and they were so excited about it. And again, I think this is another example of they sold or downloaded 5 million copies not because they had a publisher or someone who bought them out, but because people liked it and people streamed it and played it with their friends, and it organically just kind of took the world by storm. So I still think it's an indie game.
Sam?
I agree. It became popular because it's a good game and because of memes, Among Us and all that. But yeah, it stayed true to its vision. It's still the same team. 100% yes.
Taz?
Soon not to be.
Soon not to be. See, this is what I was waiting for. Okay. Really quick, lightning round explanation, just really quick.
Oh man, I would sell that sucker in a heartbeat. No way they're not going to do the
Right?
same.
No? Right? I'm so surprised
They're
that they
probably
haven't.
even negotiating with other companies right now. They're just waiting for a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. But right now, it is, right?
I don't want it to be, but yeah, I guess.
Reluctant,
Overrated
yes.
game,
Okay.
in my opinion.
I also think it is. I think it's another great example, just like Stardew Valley. Great. This is what we want for all indie dev teams to be successful. All right, Fall Guys. The developer was Mediatonic, and they had about 30 employees at the time of development. Now they have about 230. Its publisher was Devolver Digital, but now Epic Games owns the game. Its development budget was $3 to $4 million, and its net sales some of which was free to play, 500 million downloads. Yes or no, Faye?
No, because Epic Games acquired it before it released. So.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that part.
Yeah. So I don't think it was ever an indie game.
Sam?
Yeah, no, for the same reason. And if I remember correctly, the company that was developing it also is a pretty big company, regardless of the Epic Games backing.
They had a pretty
So-
big budget, I think, compared to
Yeah.
the others we've talked about.
Yeah. So for that reason.
Taz?
Yes.
Okay. So I will tell you guys, this game is the reason why this whole conversation started, because Taz is actually my husband. Yay. And we argue about things like people do. And when this came out and it was labeled as indie, I got really upset about it. And he was like, he plays devil's advocate, which is great, but I kind of hate it sometimes. So we've talked about this a lot at this
Yeah.
point, and you still think this is an indie game.
Yeah. Yeah. Epic Games is like, here you go, we'll give you a platform. But originally it was like, it was its own company. I
Okay.
mean, even now, it's not backed by anybody. It just has a lot of people.
Thank you, Taz, for your answer. I don't think it's an indie game. All right. Homebody. This is such an interesting one because this actually came from Faye. As you know, Homebody was developed by Game Grumps. How many of you know who Game Grumps is? Okay, a lot of you. Great.
Oh, God.
So it was really hard to find any stats on this game, and again, I think it has a lot to do with, Faye will talk about, it's like one guy and whatever. It's hard to track things when it's not a lot of people. Game Grumps has about 50 employees right now, and what I could see is that about maybe 20 of them, unconfirmed, probably worked on this game. It was published by Rogue Games, couldn't find a development budget, and its net sales, I only could find like 4,500 net sales,
It
like
did
of copies.
just come out.
That's true, but it's from what I know, it's a great game,
Yeah.
so you should go check it out. Oh, Dream Daddy would have been good. Yes, kind of the same though. Really quick, Faye.
Really quick, I think it's an indie game mostly because I'm a big Game Grumps fan, and so I've heard a lot of talk about it. And Aaron Hansen, who owns Game Grumps, talked about how Jory, I think Griffith, his last name, he has been working on this game for about 4 years or so, and it started out as just something he was doing as a passion project on the side of while working at Game Grumps. Aaron Hansen saw it and was like, wow, I really like that game. I have the resources. I want to help you out. And even Game Grumps is still a really small development company. So it was a passion project of one guy, and it still is. Like, he's still the main person who created it. And Rogue Games did publish it. If I'm honest, Game Grumps did a lot more publishing and marketing than that, but that's just me.
But we do love Rogue Games. They're wonderful people
Yes, we
too.
love Rogue Games,
do.
but I haven't really seen much advertisement from Rogue Games, but a lot from Game Grumps. So
Rogue, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Okay.
no, but just saying, of like, even if a big publisher picks it up, that doesn't necessarily mean they're the reason it gets a push. And I think it is still wholly an indie game.
All right, Sam, yes or no?
Yes.
Taz, yes or no?
I don't know. I don't know where the money's coming from.
I'm sorry, it's only yes or no.
No.
Okay, we gotta know. I'm gonna say yes. We're gonna move on. I'm just gonna say yes. You can come talk to me. Come talk to us about these things if you want to know more about why. I'm gonna skip the next one because obviously it's not. This one, however, is a yes from me. And again, if you want to know why, I'm going to give you some stats really quick. Developed by Game Freak, began with 3 people, and had about 30 employees at the time of release. Its publisher was Nintendo. I know, whatever. Development budget was unknown. However, the marketing budget for the U.S. was $13 million.
By Nintendo.
By Nintendo. Net sales, 31 million copies sold as of 2022. So, but I still think it's an indie game, and you can ask me about that. Faye, yes or no?
Not anymore.
Okay, Sam.
Yeah.
They were when they released in Japan in like 1996, but no longer.
Okay, no longer. Taz?
Yes.
Oh, God bless you.
There's no way they're obviously not getting that Zelda money, so like Nintendo's not giving them that.
Oh,
So definitely independent.
Oof.
right. They do have quite, they only have about 150 employees.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you more about that. I know it shows. Yeah, there's drawbacks. But anyway, this was a big conversation, y'all. Thank you so much for sitting here. I'm so sorry our Q&A time got eaten up. So if you want to talk to us, please come talk to us after the panel and or join our Discord, whatever. Super quick, these are our personal tags if you want to follow us on the socials. I think pretty much all of us are on everything, so, you know. Including Threads.
I'm not.
Are you on Threads?
I'm on Threads. Yeah.
Oh, Faye's not on Threads yet.
I'm sorry. I have a lot that I'm doing.
Don't look at Threads yet.
That's still in development.
Oh dear. Anyway. And of course, we are Game Raven Review. Thank you again for joining us. And come to our other panels. They're really fun.
And we'll be hanging out. So if you do have questions,
Yes.
please still ask.